And now, a session on overcoming the obstacles of achieving high-quality data with Raj Aikat and Lucas Chatham from iMerit.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session. My name is Raj, and today I'll provide you with a quick overview of the key technology solutions that iMerit is commercializing and deploying today. After that, Lucas, who manages our analytics and anomaly analysis platforms, is going to demo a few of these technologies. But before we jump in, wanted to give you guys a quick idea of who iMerit is. I'm sure you've heard from Radha and others throughout the day about the value proposition of iMerit. If I may, I'll add 2 points to it. Number one, our differentiation. What exactly is iMerit's value proposition? And you've heard of the 3 T's, or the talent, the technology, and the technique that Radha talked about before. It's really the amalgamation of these 3 that creates something called domain expertise and experience. And that's really what makes iMerit tick. And this is expertise not just in autonomous mobility or autonomous vehicles, but across a wide variety of different verticals, from medical, AI, and fintech, all the way to content moderation, NLP, and even agriculture. We are not really your stereotypical tools company or even a human services one, but we are uniquely positioned as a customized solutions company. In other words, we are in the business of we'll solve your problem. So what exactly are these problems we are solving for our clients? That's exactly what I wanted to share with you in this overview. So first, let's start with where ML DataOps is today. Let's call it 1.0. It's primarily a tech-enabled solution where we have 2 independent cycles. You have the regular ML model ops, which is where you train and deploy the models. And then you have ML DataOps, which is where you essentially prep and annotate the data. And these are largely independent loops that are intersecting at the point of training. Data preparation and annotation is largely a human skill set today, with technology used primarily for infrastructure, tracking and analytics, for example, or even maybe pre-labeling for efficiency improvements of the annotators, and some skill set enhancements and training. However, the world around data is changing really, really fast. Some of the key challenges that we are facing in the industry today include, of course, the big one that we probably all agree with, which is the Cambrian explosion of data that needs to be constantly prepped for MLOps. Here, I showed some domain spheres across a few enterprise and industrial applications, such as autonomous vehicles, robots, AMRs, and then some enterprise applications such as fintech, med AI, content, etc. And that gets us to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of data sources that are constantly pumping out data for ML applications. 2 key requirements that come out of this. One is automation, and second is analytics. And let's talk about that. First, let's talk about analytics. Analytics really, for the data ops cycle, is about giving clients data at their fingertips. What data do they really need? I don't know. And we probably shouldn't even care. And that's really the essence of analytics, is 100% flexibility. For example, the data needs in a client is very different across who you talk to. An ML scientist, a data scientist, a project manager, the procurement person in charge of billing and payments, or even an executive at that company. They all have data in very different shapes and sizes. It could be multiple workflows of a client congealed into one dashboard for their consumption, or multiple dashboards for a single workflow. Also, for each of our clients, we use multiple different tools across their different workflows based on the need. And sometimes the need is for a consistent analytics across all these different tools. So we'll have a demo, and Lucas will go over all the details of all these permutations and combinations and how we make data infinitely flexible for our clients. On the right-hand side, the next is about automation. So here you see a picture of a farm where we have marked, this is the ground truth data, where we have to differentiate between plants versus weeds and other stuff like soil and mulch. Here we have marked manually the ground truth data of where the plants are in blue. I actually scrolled, and this is a different picture. It's slightly different from the previous one. And this is the annotated picture using automated CV and machine learning techniques, where the blue is again the plants. I'll scroll on back and forth to maybe show you guys some difference. This is the ground truth data. This is the annotated data. Very little difference between these. And that's exactly what we wanted to talk about. We'll take this complex picture that manually takes hours to annotate down into something very, very simple for the annotator, which would take minutes or even less than a minute in some cases. It not only improves the annotator's efficiency, but automation is also help in labeling, in image enhancements, quality control, and a slew of other functions. We are going to make lots of announcements and presentations and technical and business workshops over the course of the next few days and weeks. The next problem is production at scale, when the reliability and the safety implications it has as we deploy tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of devices on the field. On the left-hand side is our edge case analysis and triaging platform, and Lucas will go over the details in our demo. However, we've taken it one step further. What we've really done is taken the data from these edge cases, created relationships and graphs out of them, and permutations of these are now being used by our clients for test scenario generations. And every day we come up with newer and newer test scenarios. For example, recently we worked on a pedestrian falling on the ground kind of a scenario, flares in the dark in the middle of the road, caution tape, construction zones, etc. And we just keep on adding more and more. We also take this edge case data and we work with our clients' partners to create synthetic data out of which are fed into environmental models. So for example, this weird edge case about a trailer that is in a weird situation following a truck can be translated to how would your car react if your braking distance was much longer. So for example, with snow or rain in the ground. Here is an example of a synthetic data with the same scenario, but with snow on the ground. We use that internally to train our networks when we don't have enough data, but we've also partnered with other companies to provide synthetic data for AV simulation and other use cases. Again, stay tuned, and in the coming weeks and months, we are going to make lots of announcements around that. The third challenge is the ops side. Production edge case ops is the first one, where you take the data not just for training, but from the field, the constant stream of data, and extract all the bad decisions, and in a curated way that involves both automated and manual annotations, retrain and redeploy the networks. Also, monitoring the performance of your neural networks. Take a representative sample from the model, model your accuracy, and keep on monitoring it, flagging, and then representing either as analytics on your dashboard or as data that's fed back to the left in the production edge case ops and used to retrain and redeploy. We are going to make, again, lots of announcements of this in the upcoming few weeks and months, so please stay tuned. So overall, all these challenges have led to what we call the ML DataOps 2.0, which is primarily a tech-driven initiative at this point of time. It's not just about annotations feeding into the code and helping train data. Now we have custom prepped data feeding into every single piece of the MLOps cycles, from edge case and anomaly analysis to testing to even deploying, monitoring, and operating in the field. And that has created a world of from human economics all the way to knowledge economics. So the human in the loop has been converted into the expert in the loop, and the skill set expands to essentially every stage of the ML development and deployment phase. So with that, I'll pass it on to Lucas, who will talk about our analytics and edge case platform. Lucas, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Raj. Hello, my name is Lucas. I'm the product manager for iMerit's ground control platform. It's the one-stop shop annotation workflow monitoring platform and edge case resolution platform for iMerit. But before we get into ground control, let's look at the high-level problems that exist with data annotation workflows. So super high level, low quality data in, less performant model out. I think we can all agree that's the reality. And when you have high quality data coming in, you'll have a more performant model coming out. So low quality data is what is slowing effective AI deployment, which then, just to be crystal clear here, low quality data is the enemy. This is the problem. This is what is constraining deployment of ML in a number of different capacities. So then, what's the promised land? The goal is high quality data, valid, accurate, complete, unique, timely. That is the North Star. So how do we get there? How do we get to that high quality data? So this framework is how we think about and understand where each customer might be. Some customers have data, but no guidelines on how to annotate that data. Some customers have no data and no guidelines, but they have an idea that they'd like to execute on. What we help all of our customers get to is that top right quadrant where there's data and there's guidelines. And we have this continuous process of both monitoring and improving on the existing guidelines, as well as capturing and identifying and resolving edge cases of all kinds. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Let's get into the obstacles that affect data annotation workflows. So in order to really execute well on any data annotation project, you're going to experience 1, 2, 3, or all 6 of these. Number one is tool interoperability. So right now, there are a number of different tools in the industry, whether they be homegrown by a specific company and they use just internally, or partner tools, think Dataloop, V7, Datasoar, etc. There are many projects happening all at the same time, and the tools don't always play nice with each other. They don't always connect well. It's often a manual process, and it's often cumbersome. And that problem of tool interoperability leads to reporting fragmentation. If you don't have systems that talk to each other, you can't really see what's going on at a macro level. And often you can't really get a deep understanding of what's going on at a micro level across all projects. Edge cases. Edge cases we'll get into momentarily, but as you know, edge cases, the long tail problem in a variety of industries is a continuing issue. And if you are able to capture and identify and resolve edge cases in data sets, then the faster that flywheel can spin, the faster you can output that high quality data that is the promised land that we discussed. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. Workforce skill and scale. Wow, this one actually is much more complex than it might seem at first glance. Not only do you need a group of annotators that have the skill, that understand how to annotate very specifically and in compliance with the guidelines, but also you need to have a workforce that gets smarter as your data annotation projects continue, so that the flywheel, that momentum, they can build so they can actually execute on projects faster. They get smarter around the project, the subject matter, and can accelerate total speed of execution. And then scale. This is really people management. Once you've done a pilot of, say, maybe 10, maybe 50 people on a data annotation workflow, and you decide, hey, let's turn up the horsepower, let's do 2,000 people. That's a non-trivial problem to overcome when you all of a sudden decide to scale up a project. So workforce skill and scale is actually quite a complex piece of data annotation workflows, and also implementing the subject matter experts technique in executing the managing of the skill and scale. It's something that is underappreciated, but I really want to highlight. Managing data security. As you can imagine, when there are projects that involve, for example, medical data, you want to keep those isolated, safe, encrypted, and only shown to the people that should see that data, as well as you want secure infrastructure in the full stack of a data annotation workflow. You want to make sure that there's no chance anything could be leaked, any users would be at risk, or any companies would be at risk of breaking compliance of any kind. Access to real-time insights. So this is an interesting obstacle because, as you know, probably when you have a data annotation workflow that is in progress, if you don't capture and identify problems that are happening in real time, you can end up with whole batches of data that have issues throughout the whole batch. You might have guidelines that weren't correctly defined or enforced. And the closer to real time you can get to the insights from a data set, the higher quality data output that you'll get. Remember the goal, high quality data. That's where we're going. So what is ground control? Ground control is our one-stop shop platform for managing and solving all of these obstacles. And I'll show you a little bit later, specifically what ground control looks like and what it does. Right now, ground control sits on the far right of this kind of ML ops lifecycle, where the anomaly labeling, the edge case module, and as we continue to build out ground control, we'll continue to expand the amount of space it captures on the far right. But I want to give you kind of a high level understanding of where ground control fits into the ML ops lifecycle. So let's talk about how ground control solves each problem. Number one, tool interoperability. We're tool agnostic. That means ground control can work with any tool to ingest data and represent it in a single place. So we use Cloud Cover, which is something that is a Chrome extension. You can see here, it's seamless. We have annotators log in, start their day. The Cloud Cover Chrome extension begins to track URL changes and automatically capture relevant analytics and store them in our data lake for later consumption. So that's one way we consume data. Another is API. We can plug and play with any API from any tool, and we can pull that data right into our data lake and represent it in one place. Data files, so think something as simple as CSVs or even generated emails. Any type of data file we can also pull into our data lake and represent in a single place. Manual inputs. We actually have a method where if you want to capture just real basic manual inputs in real time from annotators in an annotation project, we can do that as well. And then a JavaScript plugin. Think this is very much like Google Analytics, where they inject a little bit of JavaScript and they can track changes to a page. We do the same thing. Ultimately, we have a variety, we have really an arsenal of approaches to tackling the tool interoperability. So regardless of the tool being used, we can consume data and represent it in a single place with reliable metrics and a high fidelity of clarity. And we'll come back to that momentarily. So reporting fragmentation, the better the reporting, the better control and understanding you'll have of your project and the better edits you can make to where the project is going. So as Raj mentioned earlier, you want to be able to show one workflow, one dashboard, one workflow, 2+ dashboards, 2+ workflows, one dashboard. It's a lot of words. Let me show you practically what this means. You can have one workflow and you can dive into detail. This is you can make this custom, by the way. We have a standard dashboard and then we can accommodate any customer request. You have one detailed dashboard about an individual workflow. And I can speak to the individual metrics later during perhaps the Q&A segment. But right now we're going to go to what shows the one workflow, multiple dashboards. So what if you wanted to see multiple dimensions of the same project? What if you wanted to understand the statuses of various labelers and where the work was at different stages? What if you wanted to understand bottom quartile management? Who are the top performers? Who are the lowest performers? What if you wanted to add flags? You could add any number of views that were most conducive to the project you were working on. And then workflow 3, this is my favorite because this is the macro view that is missing across a lot of data annotation projects. You can consolidate dashboards into a single place and have a super high level view of what's happening with your data annotation project. Let's get back to the slideshow. So, edge cases. Why are edge cases important? because you want to be able to capture these anomalies and integrate them back into your data set and have them be accounted for completely in alignment with the guidelines that were presented in the beginning of the project. But let's be clear, there are two types of edge cases, and I want to talk about the one that we focus on. One, there's an edge case that may be confusing for an ML model. A flying car. You and I as humans see that and know the car's not supposed to be on the road. We should adapt to that. And we understand that's a pretty straightforward thing, but a car might not identify that flying object, depending on its stage of level 3, level 4, level 5 autonomy, wherever it's at. There's also an edge case that challenges annotation guidelines. So this is the one that we focus on and capture in our anomaly detection pipeline, which I'll get into a little bit momentarily how it works. So when an annotator sees this, yes, it's a bus, it's a vehicle. That's pretty straightforward. But then there's a car in the middle. Do they need to label it? Do they need to add context? Do they just move on? What do they do in this case? This is where our edge case capturing workflow comes into play. So we're able to capture edge cases via our cloud cover Chrome extension you saw earlier and represent them in the ground control tool in a way that not only allows multiple people to get understanding and eyes on the edge case, to be able to factor in what they're seeing and add context to what is actually the right way to annotate something, as well as provide a chain of escalations if something's really confusing. But ultimately, you want to minimize the time spent on edge cases and categorize them and annotate them correctly. Our workflow starts really simple, labeling tool. An edge case is identified and captured. It goes to a subject matter expert who can correctly categorize and place it. Once it's resolved, it goes to our training stack, which I'll get to momentarily about. We have a custom skilling platform that we use to then train annotators. Hey, there was this bus, there was a car on it. This is how we thought about the problem. This is how you can think about edge cases. So we actually have an accumulating education stack that means annotators are getting ever smarter about different subjects and different industries and different data sets, as well as the subject matter expert then compiles these edge cases and provides them to the client. Hey, these are the anomalies we're detecting in the data. Here's things you should keep an eye out for. Here's the decisions we made on the data set. And to be able to really provide the customer insight into what's happening with the variety of scenarios their data set might be capturing. Workforce skill and scale. We have a custom skilling platform that enables, like I mentioned, an ever up and to the right understanding of a particular customer's data and how to annotate it relative to the guidelines. And then a people platform that enables us to go from pilot to thousands of people easily. And that's separate tools, but we have built them at iMerit and they integrate and play nicely with ground control. Managing data security, ground control is everything you'd expect that is necessary for the type of work we do. We have continuous integration and continuous deployment infrastructure. We're built entirely on AWS. We have role-based access control. Everything is encrypted. We're HIPAA compliant as we do work with medical data. And we meet the CIS Foundation's benchmark. Access to real-time insights. This part is something that enables us to really accelerate and take a project from this is how long it takes X time to complete. And over time, we reduce that time so we get more efficient with every customer we work with. So first, we drive annotation workforce efficiencies with ground control because of the insight into the edge cases being captured. You saw in the dashboards, we have a multiplicity of reporting mechanisms to see what's going on with any project across any tool. And that enables us to work with our annotator teams to, hey, this is a flagged thing. Let's accelerate and maybe streamline this part of the project. This TPT is looking good. What else can we do to minimize the time per task TPT? Another thing is get a real-time understanding of data annotation project progress. So this is great if you have annotators doing research time on the internet versus actual labeling time, where they need to learn about something or gather information and then add it to some type of labeling task. You can unpack that and in real time understand where your annotator time is being spent. And then in early 2023, we are rolling out the review module, in which you'll be able to unpack quality metrics and get expert in the loop feedback. As Raj mentioned, he said, stay tuned in the coming weeks and months. That's something that we're working on right now and really excited to share. And that integrates into ground control. Again, it's the one-stop shop. As a customer, you wouldn't need to go anywhere else but ground control. So from a high level, ground control is the gateway into the 3 T's that Raj mentioned, the technology, talent, and technique that iMerit provides. You get access through ground control to our full tech stack and all the tools that we have built to optimize data annotation workflows. We get access to the talent, the incredible people that we have at iMerit, and the thousands of people that work on data annotation project. And then the technique, the expertise that we've developed in the last decade, getting a real solid understanding of how to approach these types of problems. Quick fun fact, 1,800 direct contributors is just an example of how many people we have working currently in real time on one project. 3,700 is a number of edge cases that we've captured and provided to our client, not only resolved and fed them back into a data set, but also gave context around edge cases and what's happening with the data set for the customer. And then 20,000 is the number of events processed per minute on ground control. Right now, that number is only going to go up. It's going to continue to increase. An event is just a portion of an annotation task, and I share that number to give you context on the speed that we are working and the type of quantity we're working with across customers and projects. So ground control, single source of truth for customers and annotators. It's a place to convene and create and get to consensus. It's encrypted, secure, and flexible. Works with any annotation tool. As you saw, really robust reporting capabilities, and it can be customized on a per customer basis. Manages edge case in an expedient, ever accelerating way as annotators get a better understanding of the type of edge cases that might exist in a data set. Provides real-time insights and quality metrics. And among other things, I wanted to add one last thing, and that is thank you. Thank you for joining us here at the summit. We will take questions now in the Q&A. See ya.